The betrayal and the call, the crimson dawn of Nexus Prime painted the sky in shades of blood and fire. Commander Sarah Chen stood at the observation deck of Habitat Complex 7, watching the Vorth battlecruisers descend through the atmosphere like metallic vultures. Her weathered hands gripped the railing as explosions bloomed across the outer settlements. 3 months ago, this world had been humanity's crown jewel in the Andromeda Reach. Now it was becoming their grave. Behind her, Dr. Marcus Rivera frantically worked at his portable console, his fingers dancing across holographic displays. The tall, lean scientist had barely slept in 72 hours. His usually neat brown hair now disheveled and his lab coat stained with engine grease. His dark eyes reflected the orange glow of distant fires as he spoke without looking up. "Sarah, the quantum transmitter is almost ready. If we can boost the signal through the old Terra network relays, we might reach Earth's emergency frequencies." His voice carried a mixture of hope and desperation that had become all too familiar in recent days. Sarah turned from the window, her still grey eyes meeting his. At 45, she had led this colony through drought, equipment failures, and political tensions with neighboring alien settlements. But nothing had prepared her for abandonment by the very government that had sent them here, the Galactic Federation's. Withdrawal had been swift and brutal in its efficiency. One day, they were protected members of the galactic community. The next, they were classified as a non-essential territorial holding and left to face the Vorth Empire alone. "How long before the next wave hits?" she asked, though she already knew the answer would be measured in hours, not days. "Captain." Jake Thompson emerged from the stairwell, his military bearing still intact despite retirement. The grizzled former Marine had been teaching agricultural engineering to colonist children just a week ago. Now he carried a pulse rifle and wore makeshift body armor cobbled together from mining equipment. His scarred face bore the weight of defending a population that had never been meant to fight a war. Perimeter sensors show at least 200 Vorth ground units moving through Sector 5, he reported. "They're not in a hurry. They know we're trapped." He paused, glancing at Marcus's equipment. "Any word from the Federation Council?" Sarah's laugh was bitter. The Federation made their position clear. Humanity joined their alliance as junior partners, and junior partners are expendable. They've pulled back all ships to defend core worlds. We're on our own. The truth was worse than abandonment. Through intercepted transmissions, they had learned that several Federation species had actively voted to sacrifice human colonies to slow the Vorth advance. Humanity's rapid expansion and technological innovation had made them uncomfortable. Allies. Better to let the aggressive newcomers be cold before they became a threat to established power structures. Marcus suddenly straightened, his face illuminated by a green confirmation light on his console. "It's done. The transmitter is online and locked onto Terra frequencies. But Sarah, you need to understand something. This isn't using standard Federation protocols. I've tapped into the old emergency network, the one Earth used before joining the galactic community. If anyone is still monitoring those channels after 20 years, they'll know we're desperate enough to break every treaty we signed," Sarah finished. She moved to the transmitter, its makeshift components humming with barely contained energy. Around them, the habitat shuddered as Vorth artillery found its range. She activated the recording system and began to speak, her voice steady despite the chaos erupting around them. "This is Commander Sarah Chen of Nexus Prime Colony, broadcasting on Terra Emergency Channel 7 Alpha. Federation has abandoned us to the Vorth Empire. 12,000 human civilians are under siege. We have women, children, elderly, and wounded who cannot evacuate. Our defensive capabilities are nearly exhausted. Through the reinforced windows, they watched another residential complex disappear in a ball of superheated plasma. Sarah's voice never wavered. If anyone on Earth is listening, if anyone remembers the colonies they sent into the dark, we are dying out here. The Federation calls us expendable. They say humanity doesn't matter in the grand scheme of galactic politics. Maybe they're right. Maybe we're too young, too aggressive, too different to deserve a place among the stars. She paused as Jake's radio crackled with reports from the remaining defensive positions. The Vorth were advancing faster now, their confidence growing with each fallen barrier. Sarah keyed the transmitter again. But we're still human. We still carry Earth in our hearts, even 30,000 light-years from home. If this is where humanity's story ends, let it be said we faced the void with courage. We stood for something, even when no one stood with us. She looked at Marcus and Jake, seeing her own determination reflected in their faces. This is our final transmission. Remember Nexus Prime. Remember that we were here. The transmission ended with a burst of static as Vorth jamming systems activated. Marcus began shutting down the equipment, preparing to destroy it before enemy forces could analyze their technology. But as he worked, his sensors detected something unusual. Deep space readings showed gravitational anomalies forming at the edge of the system. Sarah, you need to see this, he said, his voice filled with confusion. Something's coming through hyperspace. Multiple contacts, but they're not showing up on conventional sensors. It's like they're made of shadow. Jake moved to the tactical display, his military training kicking in as he analyzed the data. Those aren't Vorth ships. The drive signatures are completely different. And they're not broadcasting Federation identification codes. He looked up, hope beginning to flicker in his eyes. Could it be? Before anyone could answer, every screen in the command center flickered to life with an incoming transmission. The signal was strong, clear, and transmitted on a frequency that hadn't been used in 20 years. A woman's voice emerged from the speakers, calm and professional, with an accent that spoke of Earth's military academies. Nexus Prime Colony, this is Admiral Alina Vasquez of the Terran Deep Space Fleet. We received your transmission. Hold. Your position. The cavalry is coming. Sarah stared at the speaker in disbelief. Terran Deep Space Fleet. That's impossible. Earth doesn't have deep space military assets. We gave up independent fleet operations when we joined the Federation. Marcus was frantically scanning his instruments, trying to make sense of the readings. Sarah, whatever's out there, it's big. I'm detecting at least 50 ships, maybe more. But they're using some kind of stealth technology I've never seen before. They're practically invisible until they want to be found. The ground shook as Vorth forces began their final assault on the habitat complex. Through the windows, they could see alien soldiers advancing through the smoke and rubble of what had once been a thriving human settlement. Energy weapons lit up the twilight sky as the last defensive positions returned fire. Jake keyed his radio to address the remaining civilian shelters. All stations, this is command. Unknown friendly forces are approaching the system. Maintain defensive positions and keep your heads down. Help is coming. But even as he spoke the words, Jake wondered how help could possibly arrive in time. The Vorth ground forces were less than a kilometer away, and their orbiting ships controlled all approach vectors. Any rescue attempt would have to fight through a wall of alien firepower that had already destroyed 2 Federation task forces. The answer came in the form of silence. Not the absence of sound, but the presence of something so quiet it seemed to absorb noise itself. One moment the Vorth ships were conducting orbital bombardment, their weapons creating thunder that shook the planet's crust. The next moment, they were gone. Not destroyed in spectacular explosions, but simply erased from existence, as if space itself had swallowed them whole. Marcus watched his instruments in awe as impossible readings flooded his screens. The Vorth. FLEET, it's gone. All of it. I'm not detecting debris or energy signatures. They're just ... not there anymore. On the ground, Vorth soldiers stopped their advance. Confusion replacing confidence as their orbital support vanished without explanation. Their communication systems had gone silent, their reinforcement schedules meaningless. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens looked up at the sky with something approaching fear. That's when the shadows began to move. Black shapes emerged from empty space, their surfaces seeming to bend light around them. They were sleek, angular vessels that looked more like predatory sea creatures than traditional starships. No running lights, no engine glows, no signs of conventional propulsion. They simply existed where they needed to be, silent as death and twice as final. Sarah found her voice first. Admiral Vasquez, this is Commander Chen. We're reading massive contacts in orbit, but our sensors can barely track them. What are those ships? The Admiral's reply carried a note of grim satisfaction. Those are Phantom-class stealth destroyers, Commander. For the past 20 years, while the Federation treated Earth as a junior partner, we've been preparing for the day when being junior partners wouldn't be enough. Project Nightfall is humanity's insurance policy. We never stopped being human, and we never stopped protecting our own. As if to emphasize her words, the ground battle shifted dramatically. Vorth soldiers began disappearing from their advanced positions, not killed by visible weapons, but simply ceasing to exist. Their equipment was left behind, but the aliens themselves vanished into thin air. The few survivors fell back in panic, their disciplined formation dissolving into chaos. Jake shook his head in amazement. How is this possible? Earth doesn't have this kind of technology. The Federation would never allow independent military development on this scale. The Federation doesn't know everything about Earth, came the Admiral's reply. They assumed that joining their alliance meant abandoning our independence. They were wrong. We learned to hide in plain sight, to develop what we needed while appearing to comply with their restrictions. Every colony ship that left Earth carried more than settlers and supplies. Some carried the seeds of our real defense network. Marcus was staring at his readings with the fascination of a scientist discovering new laws of physics. The stealth technology appears to be based on dark matter manipulation. They're not just hiding from sensors, they're existing partially outside normal space-time. It's brilliant, but it should be impossible with current technology. Current Federation technology, the Admiral corrected. Humanity never stopped innovating, Dr. Rivera. We just learned to innovate quietly. The galaxy wanted us to be junior partners, so we let them think we were. Meanwhile, we prepared for the day when partnership wouldn't be enough to keep our people safe. The habitat complex shuddered one final time as the last Vorth ground forces retreated to their landing craft, but their escape routes were already cut off. Black shapes moved through the atmosphere like hunting birds, their presence marked only by the absence of enemy contacts. Within minutes, The invasion force that had threatened to wipe out Nexus Prime had simply vanished. As the immediate danger passed, Sarah found herself grappling with a new reality. Earth had not abandoned its children, after all. Somewhere in the darkness between stars, humanity had been preparing for this moment. The question now was what came next, and whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity had become during its years of apparent submission. The Dark Fleet emerges. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the TNS Revenant, her flagship's command center a study in controlled efficiency. Unlike the bright, welcoming bridges of Federation vessels, this space was designed for one purpose: war. Dark surfaces absorbed light rather than reflecting it, and holographic displays cast blue-white illumination across faces trained to show no emotion. She was a woman carved from steel and starlight, her silver hair pulled back severely, her pale eyes holding the weight of 20 years' worth of secrets. "Fleet status, Captain Park," she commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had never doubted the necessity of her actions. Captain David Park turned from his tactical station, his young face marked by the genetic modifications that allowed him to interface directly with the ship's AI systems. Neural implants glowed softly at his temples as he processed data faster than any unaugmented human could manage. "All Phantom units are in position, Admiral. The Vorth invasion fleet has been completely neutralized. 0 survivors, 0 transmissions. Sent, as far as the galaxy knows, they simply vanished." Vasquez nodded, her expression remaining neutral. She had learned long ago that victory was measured not in celebration but in the prevention of future conflicts, and our stealth integrity, maintained across all vessels. Federation sensors in the adjacent systems show no indication of our presence. We remain invisible to their detection networks. Park paused, his implants processing new information. "Admiral, Phantom is requesting permission to address the fleet." The Admiral's lips curved in what might have been a smile. "Grant permission." The air above the central holotank shimmered, and a figure materialized that defied easy description. Phantom was humanity's greatest achievement in artificial intelligence, a consciousness born from the marriage of quantum computing and human intuition. It appeared as a tall, ethereal being composed of shifting light and shadow, its features deliberately designed to be both familiar and alien. Admiral Vasquez Phantom's voice resonated with harmonics that touched the edge of human hearing. "Nexus Prime colony has been secured. Civilian casualties, 17 wounded, 0 fatalities. Vorth combat effectiveness, neutralized. However, I must report an interesting development." Vasquez raised an eyebrow. In the 5 years since Phantom had achieved true consciousness, it had never described anything as merely interesting. "Explain." Federation listening posts in 3 adjacent systems detected the colony's emergency transmission before we could intercept it. They now know that Nexus Prime was under attack and that Earth responded. Our period of complete operational secrecy has ended. The bridge fell silent except for the subtle hum of dark matter engines that powered their impossible journey through folded space. Every officer present understood the implications. For 2 decades, Earth had carefully maintained the illusion of compliance with Federation restrictions on military development. They had appeared to disarm, to integrate, to become the junior partners the galaxy expected them to be. In reality, they had been preparing for exactly this moment. Captain Park's implants flared as he processed incoming data. "Admiral, we're receiving priority transmissions from Terra Command. General Morrison is requesting immediate conference. Put him through." The holotank reconfigured to show the weathered face of General Robert Morrison, Earth's Minister of Defense and one of the few people who knew the full extent of Project Nightfall. His office was located 3 kilometers beneath the surface of Luna, in facilities that officially didn't exist. Behind him, banks of quantum computers processed information from across human space, maintaining the complex deception that had allowed their military build-up to proceed undetected. Alina, how did it go out there? Clean operation, General. Nexus Prime is secure, and the Vorth threat has been eliminated. But Phantom is correct. We've revealed ourselves. Federation intelligence will be asking questions we're not ready to answer. Morrison's expression grew grim. We may not have a choice. I'm forwarding you intelligence reports from the past 6 months. The Federation isn't just sacrificing human colonies anymore. They're actively planning to restrict our territorial expansion and limit our population growth. Some species are pushing for humanity to be reclassified as a containment priority. Vasquez felt the familiar cold anger that had sustained her through years of preparation. Humanity had made the mistake of trusting the galactic community once before. They had disarmed, integrated, accepted junior status in exchange for protection and technology sharing. The Federation had responded by treating them as a useful but ultimately expendable resource. What are your orders, General? Begin Phase 2 of Nightfall. It's time the galaxy remembered why they were afraid of us in the first place. The transmission ended, leaving the bridge in contemplative silence. Phase 2 meant emerging from the shadows, revealing the true extent of human military capability. It meant the end of pretending to be weak, and the beginning of a new chapter. In human history, Phantom's voice cut through their thoughts. Admiral, I am detecting multiple distress signals from human settlements across the Outer Reach. 17 colonies are reporting attacks by various hostile forces. It appears that news of Federation abandonment has spread, and opportunistic species are moving to claim human territory. Vasquez turned to face her tactical displays, watching as red indicators marked worlds where human civilians faced extinction. Each light represented thousands of lives, families who had trusted Earth to protect them when they ventured into the dark. The Federation had abandoned them, but Earth had not. Captain Park signaled the fleet. All ships are to break stealth and prepare for combat operations. Begin broadcasting on all human emergency frequencies. Park's fingers danced across his neural interface. Message prepared, Admiral. Attention all human settlements in the Outer Reach. This is Admiral Alina Vasquez of the Terran Deep Space Fleet. You are not alone. You are not forgotten. Earth stands with its children, no matter how far from home they may be. Help is coming. The transmission rippled across subspace, reaching colonies that had given up hope, outposts that had prepared for death, settlements that had begun destroying their own infrastructure, rather than let it fall into alien hands. On 18 different worlds, humans looked up at stars that had seemed cold and distant, and saw them transformed into harbingers of salvation. The Revenant's engines hummed with increasing power as dark matter cores reached full activation. Around it, 53 other vessels began the transition from stealth to active combat configuration. Phantom-class destroyers extended sensor arrays that had been hidden within their hulls. Eclipse-class, heavy cruisers revealed weapon systems that bent the laws of physics to project destructive force across impossible distances. And at the center of it all, the Revenant itself transformed from shadow into substance, its true nature finally revealed. Dr. Marcus Rivera's voice crackled. across the communication channel from Nexus Prime's surface. "Admiral, our sensors are detecting massive gravitational distortions. What exactly are we looking at up there?" "You're looking at 20 years of human ingenuity, Doctor. When the Federation told us to limit our military development, we didn't stop innovating. We just learned to innovate in ways they couldn't understand or detect. Dark matter manipulation, quantum phase technology, consciousness integration with AI systems. We took every restriction they placed on us and turned it into an opportunity to become something they never expected." On the planet below, Sarah Chen watched the sky transform as ships that had been invisible moments before began to reveal themselves. They weren't the sleek, graceful vessels of Federation design. These were predator ships, built for efficiency and lethality. Their black hulls seeming to drink starlight rather than reflect it. "Admiral," she transmitted, "what happens now?" "The Federation won't ignore this. They'll say we've violated every treaty we signed." "Commander Chen, the Federation violated their treaty obligations when they abandoned human civilians to die. Every colony they wrote off, every outpost they sacrificed, every time they treated human lives as acceptable losses, those were the real treaty violations. We're simply correcting their mistake." Jake Thompson, monitoring ground-based sensors, whistled softly at his readings. "Admiral, I'm showing weapon signatures that shouldn't be possible." "Are you carrying antimatter warheads?" "Something better, Captain Thompson. We're carrying hope. Hope backed by the most advanced military technology in the galaxy, developed by a species that refuses to lie down and die." The fleet began to move, not with the thunderous roar of conventional engines, but with the silent grace of vessels that existed partially outside normal spacetime. Their destination, 17 worlds where humans faced extinction, where alien forces had moved to claim territory they believed was undefended. Those forces were about to learn why humanity had earned a reputation for stubborn survival long before they reached the stars. They were about to discover that Earth's children carried more than colonial supplies and farming equipment when they ventured into the dark. They carried the promise that no matter how far they traveled, no matter how alone they seemed, Earth would always come for them. Phantom materialized beside Admiral Vasquez as the fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace. "Admiral, probability calculations suggest that revealing our capabilities will fundamentally alter the balance of galactic power. The Federation will be forced to acknowledge humanity as an equal partner rather than a junior member. Or they'll try to destroy us before we become a threat they can't control," Vasquez replied. "Either way, the galaxy is about to remember something they should never have forgotten. Humanity doesn't surrender. We adapt, we survive, and we protect our own." The stars stretched into lines of light as the Terran Deep Space Fleet entered hyperspace, carrying with it the promise of a new era in human history. Behind them, Nexus Prime began the long process of rebuilding, its citizens no longer alone in the dark. And across the galaxy, other species began to realize that humanity's 20 years of apparent weakness had been something else entirely, preparation for the moment when weakness would no longer be enough. In the depths of space, messages began to spread from colony to colony, outpost to outpost, wherever humans had settled among the stars. 3 simple words that carried the weight of prophecy: Earth remembers everything. The age of humanity as junior partners in the galactic community was over. The age of humanity as the galaxy's most dangerous protectors had begun.